I love when we start a show here, midweek show on a Wednesday. Never mind the nastiness that's happening outside. If you are yet to leave your office, take your time. Take your time. Maybe schedule a happy hour in, a bite to eat, something that's going to keep you inside the facility for a little while. They're talking tornadoes, folks, but we're talking all-pro linebacker re-signing with the Philadelphia Eagles. Dare I say the number one request from all Eagles fans heading into this offseason? Re-signing Zach Baun. Your wish is Howie's command. Was able to get the deal done. 3 years. And Zach Baun, the all-pro linebacker for this phenomenal defense all season long, will be back for the Philadelphia Eagles. Good afternoon, Sean Brace and Kyle Fisher running with me in studio. You know Kyle very well. He's been on this program a few times already, specifically in the past few months. And give Kyle a follow over at Kyle Fisher 45, and you can read all of his great work at the Philly Sports Network. Give them a follow as well. Kyle, great to have you in studio, man. How you doing?
Great to be here, Sean. Like you said, bad weather, but that doesn't mean that the news is bad out here.
Let's go.
In Philly sports land. Huge news right as we got into the studio of that re-signing. Huge number for Zach Baun. Probably, as you mentioned, the number one concern for the team going into the offseason. What's that? 3 years, $51 million. Turning a 1 year, $4 million prove-it deal into a payday of a lifetime. Got to be excited for the guy and for what he brings to this Eagles defense.
That's interesting. Yeah, when you really get into the numbers, you're right about that. A prove me deal. We had a great episode. We did the All-Pro Philly show with Gerald Colton out there at Chickies and Pizza in Marlton. And all season long, trust me, it's always a great listen. Gerald comes from a background of an agent. He is an agent. That's his background, if that made sense. Anyways, and the list this year, again, the cool thing about that show is it's not always A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts at the top dogs. It's the other guys. And people often forget that these guys that make up the 53-man roster are the best of the best, the creme de la creme when it comes to being an athlete in their high school, in their college. Hell, even in the NFL, we're still talking about top dog. You might look at somebody that like a Quez Watkins and be like, yeah, all right, dude. Quez Watkins was a badass his whole life. Like, that's the way you got to think about this. And to hear their stories, and Zach's was insane, man. It was really cool. He came from Wisconsin and balled out there. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, like Big Ten, all defensive player, made a huge name for himself, gets the opportunity to go down to New Orleans, and all they want to do is give him special teams
guy.
That's it. And then he was asked specifically, I have to dig this up because it was a really good Q&A. And he was asked specifically about, like, when that goes down and you know what you're capable of, those decisions are being made and you are still left on special teams, not getting a crack on the defensive side of the ball as a starter or getting reps, period. What do you do? Are you frustrated with coaches? Are you taking that out on somewhere? And, like, he had such a really good answer, and it was about looking within. It was about, I need to do things differently. I have to do more. It's not about the coaches. It's some of the circumstances, no doubt. But at the end of the day, he challenged himself. He gets to Philadelphia, and look, Saquon Barkley got the new deal yesterday. And we said specifically yesterday about Saquon, he could not have done any better than last year. I don't think Zach Baun could have done any better than last year.
Especially when you saw where he came from, right? A guy who, a lot of times, special teams guys are considered fringe roster players at best, right? You talk about guys who, if you're a special teams specialist, how long is your career typically, or at least how long is your tenure with one team? We see he switches teams. They see the skill set. They work with him to determine what the best fit is. A team that doesn't really put a lot of emphasis on the linebacker position traditionally slides him in there just to see, hey, what do you got? We know what you showed in college. Let's see what you can do out here in this defense run by a defensive wizard in Fangio. But I don't mention Fangio to give Fangio all the credit. The guy still has to go out there and perform, and he did just that. Like you said, how could you ask for a better result from a guy, especially on a one-year prove-it deal? He had to go out there and do that if he wanted to get the big payday.
Yeah, this team, man. They don't ever hook up linebackers like that.
No.
Like, there was a moment that I was starting to believe that Zach Baun will be elsewhere.
Oh, yeah.
I think, you know what, and we had Zach Berman on yesterday from PHL Live Sports. Let me ask you about this one, because I think if Nakobe Dean is healthy, does Zach Baun get that deal?
Ooh, that is a good question. I think they wanted to bring him back. I think that you can't have too much depth in on the defensive side of the ball regardless. I think that they saw the benefit of having such strong middle of the field coverage. I think that the league, you saw a little bit this year, start to move back towards the middle of the field a little bit. That's why, your defensive tackles are more important than ever. Your linebackers are more important than ever. Corners have become so good, and edge rushers have become so good that you're almost seeing a trend back towards the middle of the field. I mean, we saw what Saquon and Henry both did. Not that the entire league is going that way yet, but you have more big body receivers willing to go across the middle, publicly calling to go across the middle more often. You have Tom Brady out here publicly talking about how quarterbacks need to throw their receivers open across the middle of the field more often. So having that solid coverage in the middle of the field is important. Maybe I'm putting my fan hat on a little bit there when I say that.
We're fans.
But I think that my hope was that they would bring him back as a fan of the Eagles. You're right, though. Maybe they don't put as much emphasis on there if they know that they have health elsewhere to start next season.
Incredible. Zach Baun is back. $51 million deal.
$51 million.
I know that this just broke out. It includes $34 million guaranteed.
Yep. I think was like a small signing bonus overall, I believe.
What's that?
I haven't seen all the details yet.
1.5 million in
1.5
incentives and escalators.
Okay.
What's that like, man?
If I knew, I wouldn't be sitting here with you, Sean. No offense, but
what's
if I knew what that
Zach
was like.
Baun doing today, knowing that deal just got faxed through? It's like Jerry Maguire, right?
Yeah.
When they're waiting on that fax coming through. Show me the money, and you finally get that deal sent to you, and it says $34 million guaranteed. It's incredible, man, and he's one of us. Like he's one of ours, one of us, and look, from the season that it was, I'm actually literally getting goosebumps, and it's has nothing to do with me. I won't see the penny of that money, but it is really cool to see this guy get rewarded, what he's been through, and he was a missile out there on that field.
Oh yeah.
So we'll get to that point where it's like, we saw what you did. There's no taking a step back now, and I don't think that would be the case. But they do have to get healthy, and Nakobe Dean was a big piece of that puzzle. But Burks played really well. He's still under contract, correct?
Yeah.
Oren Burks. All right. So look, they're gonna have a good.
Oren Burks. No, I'm sorry. Oren Burks is a free agent.
Is he a free agent? He was good, man. He's probably gonna get picked up somewhere.
I would think that he'll get grabbed by somebody. I mean, they have quite a few free agents. Mm-hmm. It's going to be impossible to bring back everybody.
That's true.
Like you said, especially knowing that Burks is also a free agent, you had to grab one of those guys. I think Baun was the leader in the clubhouse if you're talking about who to bring back out of those two. So.
Got draft picks, Howie Roseman season. Time to make it happen again. You know what? He's very willing and able to do.
Think about this. Would you imagine ever when they signed Baun last season?
No.
That a year later, you'd be talking about him getting paid more than Bradley Chubb?
No.
I would have never imagined that.
I would have said that they won't be paying a linebacker. That's not what they do.
Yeah,
it's like they would not even brought him back, regardless of what his season was. That's the approach that I just feel like we have come to know over the past 2 decades of how the Eagles operate. Now I know Joe Banner is no longer in charge here, and it's Howie Roseman's squad. But at the end of the day, it seems like a lot of that stuff was bounced off of Jeffrey Lurie early, and they still hang on to a lot of those. Like, I saw a Joe Banner piece when he was interviewed by Rich Eisen. It was fantastic before the Super Bowl. It was like 20 minutes long, and he went into like, hey, hiring a head coach. This is what we were asking when we hired Andy Reid. Guess what? Jeffrey Lurie's still doing the same and running out those same quiz questions for Nick Sirianni. I mean, it's insane to see how that has worked. Anyways, I just want to put this out here. The Eagles have 6 offensive starters under contract through 2028, with Cam Jurgens likely joining that group this offseason. That was Jimmy Kempski. According to Jimmy Kempski right here. Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, and then Lane Johnson is under contract for another 2 seasons. Pretty insane.
Yeah.